afternoon, everyone. It's Anthony here with Tweaktown, and I'm here for another Facebook Live video where I'm going to be talking about Samsung's massive list of issues with the Galaxy Note 7. So this all happened right after the release of the Galaxy Note 7. Samsung had a massive unveiling for the Galaxy Note 7. It was and still is an awesome smartphone. It has an amazing display. It has great battery life. It has a super fast processor. It has wireless charging. It has a USB Type-C connector. It's got the an improved and upgraded S Pen. It's waterproof. It's dual curve display. There's so many things that Samsung actually did to the Note 7 that made it stand up and above the rest, including Apple's new iPhone 7, which is pretty boring. It's what Apple have always done with their releases. It's just made it a little bit better and refined it a little bit, but Samsung really went above and beyond the Call of Duty with the Galaxy Note 7. Now, if we go back and look at a timeline of what actually happened, so Samsung unveiled the Galaxy Note 7. Most of the reviews on the Note 7 were overwhelmingly positive. As I said, I actually own a Galaxy Note 7, and I've checked the IMEI number on this, and this is part of the faulty batch, but I love it. I really do. This is one of the best smartphones I've ever owned, and I bought that outright in Australia. That cost me $1,350. So it's a very expensive smartphone, but it is a step above the rest, and I don't like Samsung smartphones. I did not like pretty much any of the smartphones before that. The hardware is always good. Samsung doesn't really do that bad with the hardware, but it's always the software. There's always TouchWiz crap all over it. It's not good. I have considered returning it, and then I'm like, no, I'm not going to return it. And then I'm like, I'm going to wait until Wednesday, September 21st to return it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. So then I came to the conclusion yesterday that I'm going to do it. I'm going to get the Nexus 5X, and then I'm going to wait for Pixel to be announced, and then I'm going to do that. Like I said, I personally love my Note 7. And then September 2, started the stories. I started writing all of the stories on the Galaxy Note 7, and September 2, there was a rumored global recall. Samsung had not confirmed anything at this stage. I'm guessing that they were looking behind the scenes at all the Galaxy Note 7 sold to see if there were any internal problems. I'm sure that they knew there were problems, but they didn't want to say anything at the time. It was all behind the scenes, hush-hush kind of stuff, and this was nearly 3 weeks ago now. September 4, Samsung announced a global recall of the Galaxy Note 7. So even though there were rumors 48 hours before, Samsung still took 2 days of potential explosions and fires, which eventually happened. And they then announced a global recall on September 4, which was fine. But then all of the problems started to kind of steamroll into a much bigger issue. So then rumors started coming out of an estimation of how much this would cost Samsung to replace every single smartphone sold, or every single Galaxy Note 7 sold, which is going to cost upwards of $1 billion. That sounded like a lot at the time, because you're thinking, that's $1 billion that Samsung are just going to have to bleed, even though they would have made all of this back. It's not like they're just going to get the Galaxy Note 7 and throw all of the faulty ones away. They're going to get the Galaxy Note 7 and refurbish it. They're going to take the battery out, probably replace the battery if that's what is faulty. So which I don't think that it is, and I can't confirm that, but I'm going to get through this list. It'll only take me a couple of minutes. So then that was September 7. So September 7, Samsung were estimated to have been looking at about $1 billion to do all of the Note 7 replacements and all of the Note 7 issues that were going on, to replace them, fix them, sort it all out. And then on September 12, the story started coming out of people being, more and more people being hurt. So between September 7 and September 12, there were numerous stories of people being hurt from this phone, either it burning in their hands, or they go to grab it once it's on charge and it bursts into flames. There was a car in somewhere in the world that burst into flames. I think it was in the United States. Then September 12, a 6-year-old boy in New York City, he was watching videos on YouTube on his parents' Note 7, and it burst into flames in his hands. He was mostly okay, but it still burnt his hands, and it would have really scared a 6-year-old kid. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I can't imagine how absolutely fearful she would be if a smartphone blew up in her hands. Even catching fire, it would scare someone, especially that young. And then the next day on September 13, rumors were going around that Samsung were going to be doing a deactivation update. So Samsung would, this obviously never happened, but it might still happen, where Samsung would push out a forced update or a notification that would just deactivate the smartphone straight away. So it pretty much just, give you a warning. You have a faulty Galaxy Note 7, you need to return this to the store, it's going to turn off. I don't know why Samsung didn't do that. I think that Samsung should have done that from day one, and sure, it would have pissed people off. It would have pissed off thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, but you wouldn't have hurt people either. If it comes up on my phone and it says, this phone is being deactivated because of a hardware fault, that's fine, just do that, don't worry about it. Just shut the phone down and then they can return it to the store. You're causing inconvenience. Provide the people that bought a Galaxy Note 7 with work with Uber, provide them with a free Uber to drive to their store of choice, no matter what it costs. That's going to cost way less than the damage that ended up costing to people, to actual physical harm. It was banned off of multiple airlines. In Australia, we were one of the first countries, I think the first. A few of our airlines started banning the use of a Galaxy Note 7 on a plane, even though they knew that these kinds of issues can happen to any phone. That it was just in the media that people were so worried. It was we all know what the fear-mongering mainstream media is like. They're like, oh my god, explosions, planes are going to come down, the world's going to end, and it could have been that bad. But that's where Samsung doing a remote deactivation would have made sense. It would have made sense. A remote deactivation that could have just disabled the smartphone straight away, and then all these problems could have pretty much been avoided. On September 14, over the weekend of September 12 and 13, Samsung, obviously the share market had gone into its little sleep for the weekend, and then on Monday, $26 billion had been wiped from Samsung's market share, which is a massive amount of money. That's not Samsung's own money. That's their share, like market cap and share market price. There, it's $26 billion just gone over a weekend. But that's what happens when you're a global powerhouse mobile manufacturer that makes millions of other devices and little parts for other phones and little parts for pretty much every electronic device. Either has Samsung touching it, Samsung supplying for it, or another company is getting Samsung to do something for them. Samsung are massive in terms of scale. So $26 billion also sounds like an astronomical amount of money, but in Samsung and Apple scale, it's not an end of the world amount of money, but it still would have people at Samsung really starting to crap themselves, worrying about what's going to happen in the future. On the same day, I wrote another story. I've written so many stories on the Note 7 so far. I wrote another story saying that Samsung were rumored to be forcing out another firmware update to actually limit the battery to 60%. So it would never be overcharged, it would never get it up to maximum charge. And 60% of a battery inside of the Note 7 is still going to last for a fairly long time. 3500 milliamp hour, you're looking at something like pretty much say 12 to 16 hours, even at 60%. Samsung could have done that as well. They could have done that, and they did not. It was weird to have seen Samsung go through so much in that time without any government kind of stepping in, and then that started to happen within the days after that. September 14, we had the 60% firmware update reports. September 15 were reports that Samsung's next smartphone, the Galaxy S8, wouldn't arrive with a headphone jack. Now, this is where I start to really question where the hell these companies think they're going with removing these totally open standards, that there are tens, if not hundreds of millions of products in the audio market that use a 3.5mm jack. I don't know why you would remove something like that without coming up with a new open standard that everyone could use. Instead of Apple using Lightning and pushing their iPhone and iPads, which will probably eventually only have a Lightning port as well. Currently, only the iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus have a single Lightning connector with no 3.5mm jack. I think that Samsung could really jump on this and go, in the opposite way. Instead of all these rumors saying that there's going to be no headphone jack on a Galaxy S8, why not come out and go, here's a new jack that we've worked with every single mobile provider, Motorola, HTC, everyone, and go, this is going to work. And it's a new standard, and it's thinner, it has less electronics, we can put more battery in there because you can use that little bit of space that you're saving. But that's just a rumor right now, that's not confirmed. The Galaxy S8 might have a 3.5mm headphone jack, we do not know. I'm guessing that it would, and I'd be really pissed off if it didn't. I think that Samsung would be going in a really crappy direction if they decide that during this type of time that they're going through, this very unwalked path. They've never been in this situation before. I don't think many big companies have been in this situation before in terms of having as much reach as Samsung does. The only company that would be able to get close to that would be Apple. And if they were to remove a 3.5mm jack, which is so standard and pissed so many people off with the iPhone 7 and iPhone 7s Plus announcements, this would really anger Samsung customers. So I don't see Samsung doing this, but it's part of the articles that I wrote, so I thought I'd talk about it. And then the next day, after the news or after the rumors that there'd be no 3.5mm jack on the Galaxy S8, were rumors that Samsung were going to be releasing the Galaxy S8 ahead of time, so 6+ months ahead of time, to squash all of the marketing problems that they're going through with the Galaxy Note 7. It makes sense, but I can't see Samsung doing that. I can't see Samsung being at the point where they're like, wow, our Galaxy Note 7 sucks so bad. Let's release another smartphone 6 months ahead of time without enough testing, without enough QA, without enough anything. It's just going to be a rushed product. And sure, Samsung probably will pull it off because they've already shown that their engineering skills with the Note 7 are amazing. Sure, the batteries are having issues, but that's not a direct Samsung problem. That's a subsidiary company that Samsung owns, I think, a 20% stake in. Samsung SDI Co. I think are the ones that made the batteries for some of these phones. And then the big news dropped. September 17, the United States government, with the arm of the US Consumer Product Safety Commission, actually issued a recall, an official government-led recall of the Galaxy Note 7 in the United States, which was really, really bad. To actually have the government get to that point where they actually needed to recall the phone and pretty much say, Samsung, hey, wait a minute, this phone is completely FUBAR, you need to stop selling it, and you need to GTFO with that handset and release it when it's ready, because it's not. Obviously, it's a safety hazard now. Not only does the phone, it's not like it's a crap phone or it's slow, the camera sucks, TouchWiz UI is 10 times worse. It's an actual safety hazard now. Then it was only yesterday that I wrote a story just before I went to bed. I was pretty tired, but I needed to get it out. So there were two variants of the Galaxy Note 7 smartphone. There was one for a main one for the market, which either used Samsung's own Exynos processor, and then there was another one that used a Qualcomm chip. But with the batteries, there were two batteries. There were one that went out to pretty much 95% of the market, and then there was one that supposedly Samsung used a different manufacturer of battery, a different battery supplier, for the Chinese variant of the Galaxy Note 7. This was supposed to be the version of the phone that did not have any problems. Samsung had come up before, I think earlier in the month, and said that the Chinese version of the Galaxy Note 7 won't be recalled because it's using a different battery from a different battery supplier. Then yesterday, Galaxy Note 7 caught fire in China. So then this has opened up an entire new can of worms, because Samsung came out and said, look, the Chinese version of this phone is fine because we use a different battery supplier. So you'd think the battery that the Note 7 is using in the ones that are blowing up and catching fire are from a faulty batch or a company that has somehow done something wrong. Samsung couldn't catch it in time. They've put millions of them into production, and then they've gone out into the world. And they said that the supplier for the one in China is actually okay. And now it's come out that that one's stuffed as well. I don't know what Samsung's going to do there. They've completely screwed the pooch with that kind of stuff, in terms of people trusting them, of them coming out and going, the Chinese version is fine because we've gone through a different supplier and the battery is sourced from somewhere else that doesn't exhibit the issues that the Note 7 in other parts of the world does. That's really bad. Really, really bad if Samsung would do that. And then if it couldn't get worse, for Samsung, there was news that Samsung heard internally about what was happening at Apple internally in terms of the iPhone 7. Of course, there's corporate spies and all that kind of stuff. It happens. This is the world we live in. Samsung have probably got a couple of insiders at Apple. I'm sure Apple have got a couple of insiders at Samsung. It goes both ways. They fight against each other. Of course, they're going to have people throwing information across the fence. It's going to happen. It would happen with most companies. Samsung supposedly heard that Apple weren't going to be doing anything too over the top in terms of changes to the iPhone 7 over the iPhone 6s. So we had the iPhone 6, which didn't really change much from the iPhone 5, but it was a little bit of a step up. So we had the iPhone 6, iPhone 6s, And then we had the iPhone 6 Plus, iPhone 6s Plus. So one is the iPhone 6 and 6s are the 4.7-inch versions. The iPhone 6s, iPhone 6s Plus are the 5.5-inch versions. And they have been fine with their batteries. They've been completely fine. And tens of millions of them have been sold. There haven't been many problems at all, not anything battery related, not in this one, not in this style where the phone's blowing up or catching fire, which is pretty serious. Samsung heard that Apple's new iPhone wasn't going to be that exciting, so they reportedly, this isn't confirmed, Samsung's not going to come out and admit this kind of stuff, that they needed to rush the Note 7 out to launch. So Samsung had heard that Apple were going to be releasing a meh upgrade to the iPhone 7, decided to jump on the opportunity and really ramp things up with the Note 7, and it does. And Samsung have got a lot of awesome stuff in the Note 7. Wireless charging, USB Type-C, fast charging, the dual edge display, the beautiful Super AMOLED display, which is pretty much one of the best looking displays on the market. It has a 3.5mm jack, shock horror, that's probably going to be a feature from now on. A high resolution display, so 2560 by 1440. It has a bunch of stuff like an iris scanner. There's a lot of stuff that sure a lot of people won't use it. I don't use the iris scanner, but it's there. It's there if you want to use it. Samsung just throw everything into the phone, and for the most part, they work. Where Apple just released another iPhone that really isn't a jump up on the current iPhone 6s or iPhone 6s Plus, and Samsung decided to jump on it and then release a Note 7, maybe a little bit too early, and this is where we are.